This video is devoted to giving an update to my 2 or 3 week attempt to get Gavin Ortland to respond to my criticisms of his war rape discussion on his apologetics channel. So I'm going to go through some tweets and kind of give you a timeline of how things developed and where they are now. As you can see, things began May 9th. Gavin posted a discussion of Deuteronomy 21:10-14, where he was arguing that this doesn't lead to rape or sexual contact without consent because there really are reasonable accommodations being made to the females described in the passage. So I made a 20-minute video responding to his video, same day, posted it, just outlining some of the very serious critiques. And as you can see, I tagged Gavin in the tweets. I was hoping he would watch it and respond because we had just had an interaction. He knew who I was. He knows that I'm an academic and an apologist who's been working in areas related to these matters for many years. Uh, so Gavin didn't respond to that initial one. So I posted another tweet 3 days later, and I just tagged him again and said, look, in this video, what I wanted to do in this tweet is to outline in very summary, preliminary form some of my concerns with Gavin's presentation to help him understand, from my perspective, why this was important for him to consider and address. So I said, Gavin defends Deuteronomy 21, a passage that describes the process by which Israelite soldiers may marry orphan girls after they've killed the families of those girls. Now, just think about that, right? So, in this passage, what it's describing is the soldiers can come in, massacre my mother, father, 3 brothers, an older married sister, and take the one 15-year-old terrified girl and give her 30 days to mourn the family that the soldiers just slaughtered. And then she is told, now you are to marry one of the soldiers who killed your family. And you ask a simple question in terms of human psychology. Are these the kinds of conditions that are consistent with a female giving free consent to marriage, let alone to sexual contact within that marriage? And if not, and I think clearly not, and I explain that much more in the video, then this in fact is the problem of sexual assault among everything else, which goes to the heart of Gavin's defense. So I wanted him to think about that and defend it. And I concluded not only in my estimation does he fail to defend Deuteronomy 21, but his defense of the passage exhibits a lack of understanding of the nuances in sexual consent. And that has all sorts of practical implications. I provide a critique here. So again, I'm encouraging Gavin, please look at this because I think this is really important. So I don't think that he understands concepts in terms of sexual assault, uh, uh, in terms of the engagement of the individual, such as tonic immobility, collapsed immobility, and dissociation from the event. So that if we don't understand how people respond under trauma to things like contact, sexual contact, then we will not be able to identify when sexual consent has or has not occurred and when a sexual assault is occurring. And I note at the very end here, again, this has practical implications because your defense of ancient Israelite soldiers marrying off terrified, traumatized virgin girls to other soldiers that killed their families can impact how you now understand the issue of sexual consent when a pastor is charged with having a relationship with a parishioner today. It has all sorts of practical implications. And I was hoping that Gavin would look at this and consider how his apologetic can have very harmful and dangerous consequences in retrenching harmful attitudes within the evangelical Christian community. Well, Gavin didn't respond to that. So I tagged him on May 21st and said, I would love to hear your reply to my critique of your Deuteronomy 21 video. I detail many concerns in my critique, including that you don't seem to grasp the sexual issue of consent, which is essential to any discussion of sexual assault. Gavin replied, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. Hope to soon. Thank you. It's very polite, but I think also very dismissive. he's trying to frankly to put me off. I've been asking him since May 9th, 2 weeks now, to simply take 20 minutes out of his time to look at what I've enumerated as very serious consequences and a very serious critique of his apologetic defense. And so I said, look, thanks. It only takes 20 minutes. I look forward to your response. So a day later, I thought, you know what? Maybe he doesn't have time to watch it, but he can sit down for a dialogue on these issues. So I reached out to Cameron Bertuzzi at Capturing Christianity, who graciously expressed willingness to host a discussion between Gavin and myself. And so I said, hey, Gavin, would you be open to a dialogue on Deuteronomy 21? Capturing Christianity is open to hosting. Now, what I thought this would do, it would alleviate from Gavin the need to watch my video if he didn't have the time and then to formulate a response. Instead, we could simply have a discussion in real time. It would only take an hour, right, out of your time. And then we could really allow light to shine forth on this very important issue. Gavin said, I'm so sorry, I still haven't watched your video. I'm preparing to travel out of the country soon. It's in my queue, though. I really can't say anything until I've watched your video. I'm not sure why that is, why he can't say anything until he's watched the video, except maybe it's a kind of damage control thing. I mean, if he's too busy to watch it, he can just sit down and have a dialogue. I'm an academic, I'm not a troll. We could certainly have a conversation about this. So that's May 21st. I'm repeating that tweet at the top here of this slide. And then you can see me waiting a week and then responding, or even 9 days. And then I respond, hey, Gavin, have you watched my 20-minute rebuttal yet? As I said, Capturing Christianity is open to hosting us in a discussion on the topic. Now he replies, he says, yes, I watched it last Friday. So that was more than a week ago before. He says, I will pass on a dialogue for now, but thanks for offering. End of story. So that's where we stand now. So now I want to offer a quick debrief for this, what I think is a very disappointing exchange. Now, let me preface this by saying I can identify four primary reasons why a person is not going to engage critically in a dialogue or in a critique of another person. First of all, maybe that critique is just too long. It's just unreasonable to engage in it. So Mike Winger, for example, I think he produced like a 12-hour video or something discussing egalitarianism. And if he was like primarily critiquing like one other guy, and then he was saying, hey, have you watched my 12-hour video yet? Come on, let's watch the video and I want to have a dialogue with you based on the video. I can understand if someone's going to say, look, I don't have 12 hours. I'm not going to sit down and watch your 12-hour critique of my position on egalitarianism. So I get that. But my video wasn't 12 hours, it was 20 minutes. Second reason I think that you might not engage with somebody is if you think it's just so obvious that they don't know what they're talking about. So they're ignorant. Perhaps they're also acting in bad faith. They're a troll. I'm neither one of those. I am a former professor. I have a PhD in systematic theology. I'm a licensed professional investigator with trauma-informed interviewing training. So I do a lot of work in precisely this area, not only the area of biblical violence and interpreting biblical violence, which I've been speaking on for years, which I wrote a book on, but also uh, in terms of the concept of sexual consent and sexual assault and sexual harassment and abuse. That's what I work in day to day in my day job now as an investigator, a full-time investigator. So I definitely know what I'm talking about. I'm a worthwhile interlocutor. The third is if a person in their critique has engaged in invective, in ad hominems, just fiery rhetoric, something like that. It's just, yeah, I don't want to engage with that. Again, that's not me. I mean, I think I was direct. I think that Gavin has views that are false and harmful, but I'm not engaging in invective. I'm speaking plainly and providing reasons for my judgments. And the fourth reason maybe you might not engage with somebody is if you think the issues that they've raised are simply trivial and are really not germane to the central heart of your argument. Again, that's exactly not the case here. I think the issues that I raised in terms of Gavin's poor understanding of sexual consent and including concepts like tonic immobility and collapsed immobility and dissociation when people are in trauma, experiencing trauma and responding to stimuli such as person who wants to marry them, have sexual contact with them, when that individual and or some of his fellow soldiers just massacred their family 4 weeks before. These are issues that are central to Gavin's entire defense of Deuteronomy 21, 10 to 14. And he just blew me off. I didn't want to have any engagement with me. Note that he says he watched the video, but he would not give even a single sentence responding to the video, saying, this is what I misunderstood. This is how I misrepresented him. This is why I'm wrong and he's right. He would not give a single sentence reply. All he did was say, yeah, not going to engage with you, not going to have a dialogue, not going to write anything further on what you said. Have a nice day. Thanks for engaging. Now, what this is yeah, you're being polite, but you're also blowing people off. And I think this is precisely what gives Christian apologists like Gavin Ortland a bad name, is that when you press them on important issues and provide counter evidence, then like this, it seems to me that they're more interested, Gavin in this case is more interested in preserving his brand um, than admitting that he made an error and retracting a video, recognizing that it is false and harmful, and finding a new way to engage with Deuteronomy 21. And I think a more fruitful, theologically and ethically integral way than the one that he has already proposed. For me, however, to do that, to have agreed to a dialogue with me, to have agreed to revise and reject positions he had previously held when wrong, that is a sign not of weakness, but of integrity, of intellectual strength. St. Augustine himself, at the end of his life, wrote a book called Retractions, where he went back and he looked at all the theological positions he had previously held and how he had now retracted them and changed his mind on them. And I think we all need to do this at some point in our life. And again, to do that is a sign of integrity. It shows that you really care about truth. Gavin ministers in his apologetics ministry under the rubric, under the brand of Truth Unites. And if truth unites, well, then if I've offered a true and important critique of Gavin's defense and interpretation of Deuteronomy 21, 10 to 14, one that has huge existential implications and potential ethical implications for our understanding of sexual consent today, then I think that for him to have the integrity to live and stand under the banner of Truth Unites would require him to engage and carefully to consider and respond to those criticisms and then retract his arguments where I have indeed shown them to be false and harmful. So that's my debrief. And frankly, that's why I'm pretty cynical about so much of this professional Christian apologetics ministry industrial complex, because it is seems to me more focused on giving people arguments and ammunition and rebuttals than on having real, open, and vulnerable dialogues with people who offer serious critical responses to your position, which may indeed require you to revise or even reject positions that you've held.